Welcome back to the BEAM&Flow podcast. This is a nitty-gritty exploration of your body, energy, awareness, movement, and flow. I'm your host, Chloe Cofresi. I'm a proudly Latina curandera, or a healer and a coach, guiding spirit-led rebels to their richest lives. Your richest life includes community, a deep group of fellow seekers to hold you accountable, help you heal, encourage you, and celebrate with you. This season, we are exploring the different ways community supports our most lit up lives. Ready to connect? Lista? Let's go! So, Ayesha, let's just, before we even get started, let's take a breath together to kind of sink in. I know we're on screens, but we can still sink in together. So let's just take a breath. That already feels so much better.
Me too. It's amazing how something so simple can do that.
It's really, the body is a miracle. I'm
I
reminded
literally
every
wrote that.
second.
I wrote that in my notes 2 days ago. I really did. I was like really tuned into how much is happening on my behalf without me having to think, which we take for granted a lot, but that's exactly what I wrote. I was like, wow, yes.
Yeah, it's really true.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited that you are here. First of all, we've been working on getting together for a while now, so it's just wonderful to be here sitting with you. And you've got some exciting new work coming out that I'm really happy to hear about and to share with our audience. I first started following you when you were still the Girlfriend Manifesto.
Mhm.
And it's been such a joy watching you stepping into Ayesha Ophelia and you and your gift. And how is this the new romantics, your new work?
Mhm.
Where is that evolution kind of stemming from?
Hmm. Ooh, good questions. Kind of as you were speaking, I was going through this like whole trajectory in my mind. And so, you know what? It really does feel like having you sort of, give that intro, give that prompt, that invitation. It's like it's so much about all of the really tough stuff I've been through in the last 10 years, losing my mom, getting unmarried, really feeling lost and in the wilderness, and then sort of, in the heroine's journey, the idea of the heroine's journey, is arriving back to yourself. And I really feel like that's what the New Romantics has done. It's that trajectory of beginning to share who I was 10 years ago. I very much feel like I was given an invitation to move out of this shy introvert, sits in the front of the class, learns everything, and then just keeps this wisdom and knowledge really close. And so for me, starting to share as the Girlfriend Manifesto was that outlet. It was that way to share all of this wisdom and knowledge that I had been learning through some pretty tumultuous times in my life. And the New Romantics is so much about the soundtrack of our lives and the idea that we all have this truthful soul note, and we have this ability to see beyond sight. I'm a big dreamer and I love divination. One of the things I did before we got on here was just pull a card. And so the New Romantics is kind of a fusion of a lot of those things. The big question with the book is what happens in times of chaos. And we're very much living into that right now. What's birthed when we're all squeezed as humanity. And for me, music has been that guide through. Back to my intuition, back to myself. It's been such a healing force that's allowed me to kind of move through a lot of tumultuous things. And so it does. It very much feels like, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, the manifestation of all of that stuff that I kind of hinted at. And we can definitely tease apart some ideas, but that's kind of, that's what I want to share from that question you asked.
I love that. Music is is so integral to, I mean, to the world, but
Yeah.
to how, for me, how I move through my life and emotions and the dark and the depths, like all of it is tied to music for sure. If you put on a song from when I was 12, I can immediately be back in my room. I know exactly which boy broke my heart and what's like who I was crying about with that song. And
Oh,
those songs still come on, and it's like such a release when I sing them, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious, as you've been diving into music with the New Romantics, with your new book, w- as as we kind of, I know for myself, the more I look and explore in the spiritual and psychological realms, and you start to really learn about hypnosis,
Mm,
music is a way of
yeah.
hypnotism, right? It's a
Exactly.
way of hypnotizing us. So, how has that piece of it played into your exploration of music and the soul?
Man, these are great questions. I love that you brought that up because music really does have a way of bypassing our normal agencies. It kind of goes into the subconscious or the unconscious more easily. And that's what's so fascinating to me about things like divination, things like synchronicity. I feel like they're all of these forces that are always at play, but it's so much about us tapping into them. And when I started to be in this new kind of relationship with music, or kind of just wake up one day and be like, this is a living, breathing, energetic energy, and it can be used to bolster who we are, to understand ourselves better, to play with our intuition. And so I started, looking at music differently and even looking at the word romance differently because we've been sleeping on the word romance and its energy in our space. So yeah, that very much plays a part into what I was exploring with the New Romantics. This idea that music can be a tool not only for healing but for getting into those deep dark places, the subconscious, the superconscious, however you think about the operating system, the part of ourselves that we don't even think about. Like we were talking about the body being a miracle, and it's because we have all of this automatic stuff happening without us having to really intervene. And so music is very much that way. And it played a part. It really made me understand more about the power of music and the subconscious.
So, with with that exploration, has it changed how you look at some of the staple songs of your life?
Ooh, yeah, sort of like connecting those dots. Who were the helpers? Who was trying to get the word to me? Something that is a part of the book, and it's not a big part because if some people think this is dark or weird. It just depends on if you're open. And so my mom passed away. That was part of one of the big initiations in my life that made me step forward with my gifts and talents. Probably the only reason I'm even sitting here because I felt pretty content just to not step forward. But one of the things I do with the New Romantics, and one of the things that anyone can do with music, which I go through in the book, is really to connect with a loved one on the other side and to receive messages. And so that was a big part of what brought this on. This whole divination system was like, oh my gosh, we can use music in this way, and I started fine tuning how I do it. Received a lot of really on point messages from my mom that really made me feel like, okay, this algorithm of music right now is specifically from my mom to me. So kind of lost the thread of the initial question, but I want to make sure I
That's
answered
okay.
it.
I love where the
Yeah.
conversation's going.
Uh-huh.
The question was around how this exploration has changed how you view some of the staple songs in
Oh
your
yeah.
life, if it
Yeah.
has at all. And I love where it's going
Uh-huh.
because I want to get into music as divination and connecting to beyond. So I'm assuming that listening to songs as a way of connecting
Mhm.
in divination would change your
Definitely.
experience with them.
Definitely, yes. And even just like looking back on my life and the songs that got me through and what their messages were. And maybe it's just going back to realizing the power of sound and even beyond just music, but the idea that we're all of these, if we're boiling it down to the most basic level, that we all have a frequency or a sound, and that sound healers can actually sound something in our space and know something about our energetic profile. It's to me, it's like it's magic. It's kind of mind-blowing, but it makes a lot of sense when we start to really think about some of the building blocks of reality being sound and being light, and really what are sound waves. So I really got into kind of the minutia of what music and sound is. And of course, it's also these songs that, looking back, got us through or connected us to something deeper and made us ask a question. And I mean, that's something that I'll probably sit with, like, okay, now I have a new way to look at music and to think about how it's been, this silent helper, this not so silent helper, but this part of life that really got me through.
Yeah. So in how excuse me, how have how did the process work for you in terms of creating the book?
Mm.
So are you researching all of these beautiful facets about music and then the divine comes in? And or was it the divine first and
Yeah,
then you were like, "Okay, there's
yeah.
something here."
I like that. Well, it's always the divine first, but really the way that the book came to be is that I was doing this. When I do something, I get kind of obsessed with it, very scorpionic, to like be like, this is, for a while, this is all I can eat, drink, breathe. And so for me, it just was primarily this cool way to connect with asking questions. Asking questions of my mom is really what built this sort of obsession. And then I started sharing little snippets on Instagram, and everyone was like, I want to know how this is happening. And around that same time, the part of the title came, and I was like, really? Like, it sounds very cool, but like, what does that really mean? And at the same time, I was getting into the Gene Keys and started reading about what Richard Rudd thought of romance. And I was like, he's literally talking about what I've been feeling. He's put something into words. And then it was kind of this like the next right thing. I saw this clip of Maya Angelou talking about romance, and I was like, oh, and it's not even one that is a well known quote of hers. It was just her in an interview talking about what this energy is. And I just started to feel it more and more in my life, and then was put into connection with someone who has a small publishing company here in Austin. And then it happened to be someone who'd come to a bunch of stuff that I had done online. And so we linked up, and we've been creating this world, this book, kind of for the last year and a half. And so we're just about to release it for pre-order. So it was just kind of like pulling on these strings. It was like the next right thing, and then the next right thing. And then suddenly you have like a little body of work that you're pretty proud of.
I love that. I love that. It really as you're talking about the process of creating this book and this work, what struck me is how in the process you were building community, right?
Mm,
Like in the process of the next right thing, you were connecting and expanding your community and you're talking about your work with your new publisher and it sounds so collaborative. It
yeah.
sounds like you really I keep coming back to community. So has what role has community played in the New Romantics and how is that different from the role it's played in your previous work?
Oh, I like that. I really feel like, kind of thinking about it a little bit, is that community is at the heart of everything that I really do. And I think this word's been used so much that it's up to each of us to really understand what that means, like not just on a surface level. And so for me, anytime I want to do something or learn something or get better at something, I'm in community. Like even if I'm not, we're all playing a role too. It's like, okay, I love Zumba and I go to Zumba class all the time, and I'm in this community container with these women for this certain amount of time, and I play this role. And really just like looking at our lives. I learned this not too long ago, but that we need 12 different types of support to really make it. And one of those touch points is community. And so suddenly I'm like, oh, I've got this artist collective community that I moved through New York to go to now at Kripalu. And I'm having this community through the New Romantics, and especially people who like always need music around them. I'm one of those people. Like if I'm in a car with someone, and sometimes, I can be quiet. There's sound everywhere, but there's music people who like collect music and want to be around music. And so that's a community of people that I'm talking to. And then there's the divination people who really love, for me, it's this idea that divination really can be anything. You can learn to be the beacon for that oracle and for that information to come in. And so as I've really been looking at my life and how I've built any type of success, it's been through empowering people, helping people. It's been about other people. And when I really look at sort of nature as my guide, nothing in nature exists just for itself. Like the honeybee and the flower have this symbiosis and this special relationship. The turtle, it's got this whole ecosystem all over it. And I think one of the cures for this time, the things that are ailing us, is really stepping into community, because some of the communities that were set up for us aren't helping us. They're not helpful. And yet we're still investing our energy in them. And really, I'm like, how do we go around that and start to build this network of care and support and, outside of the hustle grind, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's ultimately played a really big part in my life on this screen and off of this screen. It really is, it boils down to family and how we love each other, and community is definitely a part of that.
I love equating community to family because it's so true, and I think we've lost that sense in our modern lives.
Yeah,
But families were never meant to be just like mom, dad, and kids. Like that was
exactly.
never. It was never meant to be that. The family was big and it was community. Like it was, they were interchangeable.
Absolutely.
And I think we are all kind of in this process of finding our ways into new families, into new
Mhm.
connections, into new communities, because for various reasons we've had ours pulled away, or the
Yeah.
fabric of it pulled away. And it's like we're pulling at threads that we remember being there, but we haven't
Mhm.
actually seen.
Exactly. And for some reason, I just keep seeing the words that we belong to each other, and that part of this is the great remembrance of that. And that doesn't exclude nature. It's like we to truly make a shift, there needs to be that interconnectivity. So if I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. If I harm the planet, I'm harming myself. We start to really think more from this. And this is the age that we're going into. So I feel like we're right on time for this level of chaos and some of the big questions that we're asking. Because whenever, I really feel like I was thinking about being a Scorpio, and I was like, if I don't have like 7 major deaths a year, and I'm talking metaphorical, something's not right, because we're really supposed to be turning over the soil of our lives often. And I feel like my role in the community as a Scorpio is to really encourage people to be in that death and rebirth cycle with themselves and with the world, and to view the chaos before something is born as part of the renaissance that actually makes it possible for those things to happen. And that leads back to the book, because there's a big sort of like, I looked at the renaissance in a different way, and yes, it was brutal, it was bloody, but a lot of innovation and beauty and music and culture came from that time. And that's the lifeblood of everything that's happening. And so when the artists and the change makers, like when we come together, we set the stage and we make the revolution irresistible. Whoever said that, I want to give them a little kiss on the cheek. I don't know who said that, but yeah. And I feel like that's what I'm up to, and I really feel like probably the people who are listening are up to that same thing. And we need community within ourselves too. Like that's part of the motivation for Kripalu was, remember when like all the artists would get together, like you'd see Basquiat, Madonna, like they were all together like sharing ideas, and there wasn't this like gatekeepy, or maybe there was, I'm sure there was that then, but it feels like it's at a fever pitch, and it's that pendulum sort of wanting to swing back to this beautiful middle point. And so that's the energy I'm holding, is that sacred middle point. And if you want to come hang, you know where I'll be.
So what does romance mean to you? That, the new romantics, romance, I don't want romance to be dead. People think that romance is dead, but I don't think it's dead.
No.
What does romance mean to you?
It's the evolutionary change. It's that sweet aroma from the flower that makes you stop in your tracks when you're having a bad day to actually hear your intuition. It's there is a softness about it, and I think we've doubted that for so long that we force, because we don't believe in the strength of softness. But like, again, look at nature. Look at a rock being worn down by the softest substance, water, over time. And so romance to me is that gentle, stable, reliable. And of course, we've turned it into like Tom Cruise movies where he's jumping on the chair and he's like, there, whatever. I forget what he said. What did he say?
I,
It was that line that just like
it was
effed
like, I
everyone.
love this woman.
Yes. It's like, you complete me, that whole thing.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so we've turned romance into that, and that's, to me, that's its more surface form, but like really beneath and into the roots, it's this evolutionary force that is powerful and consistent enough to be with us and help us to snap into soul, into truth, and into the moment. And that's really what I'm getting chills, just because and it's revealing itself to me ever more as a great shapeshifter. But yeah, I think it's an evolutionary force, like just bringing us forward, bringing us forward.
I like the idea of romance being an evolutionary force. I haven't heard that before, but I like it. The image that comes to mind when I hear that is like being courted by the divine.
Yes.
Like just this like
I see it.
rush of spirit and light energy following me, making the path just a little bit nicer so that I can be like, hey, who did that? Oh, that was me. That
Yeah,
was me.
right?
I did that for you.
Yes.
I really like you. I did that for you. I fucks with you. And I I like that. I like that it's this like interplay in my mind. I'm seeing, this courtship, right?
Mhm.
Unfurling the the best, juiciest parts of our lives. And I
Well,
think
and also making the tough things more palatable. Like, because we're so extreme, we've taken spiritual bypassing this word, and although there's truth in it, we've taken it to tooth and nail. But like, there is, like, when you started to share what was going on in your mind, and sorry for interrupting, but like the word grace came up. And for me, grace has been such a pleasant friend recently, because I'll be just gritting and bearing it, and of no accord of my own, I haven't meditated, I haven't done any of all the right stuff. I wake up, and by grace, something has shifted. The load is a little heavier, and I'm like, hey, thanks. So it makes the hard stuff palatable, because I think people's first objection to the word romance is like, no, we're living in, like, it's life or death now. We don't have time for these things. And everything we've relegated to we don't have time for is actually the element that is going to be the most powerful for us if we don't want to recreate the old shit. So, like, imagination, creativity, romance, everything that the artist feels compelled to do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not excluding anyone from being an artist, because we are all so divinely creative. So each and every one of us creates our life. But are we doing it on default, or have we let the sweet aroma of romance awaken us? And oh my gosh, I made this decision with a little bit more lucidity. It's not in reaction. I have a little bit more of that good epigenetic juice. I'm not turning on all the old shit in the world or in my family line. Like, it is powerful. And so have always been a cheerleader for the things that people sleep on, forget about, or are afraid of. I'm like, nope, we're not doing that. Wake up.
Same, same. And I think the I don't know if you can relate to this, but for me, the more that the messaging is, no, we don't have time for that, or you're crazy for thinking that, or this is not useful, it's not efficient, it's I dig in my heels even more.
Yeah.
It's like I hear that and I'm like, but then what's the point? Like, without romance, without softness, without the juiciness,
Yeah.
right? What's the point? Because the hard times are coming. They don't just go away because we see the romance. But like you were saying, it makes those times more palatable. So I never really understood this desire to live without desire, or to live as if the idea of pleasure in nature is wrong, or going to lead us astray, or like I said, just not efficient.
Yeah.
And so when I connect with people like you who are so in their truth of, no, but this is the way, like this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm like cheerleading over here, like, yes, somebody else is saying it, they get it, like, yes. So let's talk about how romance guides this divination system, right, with music.
Yeah.
So what's this interplay like when you were exploring? Were you just on Spotify hitting shuffle and saying, all right, whatever the universe wants, whatever my mom wants me to hear is what's going to come through? Like, how did that happen?
I like it. Yeah, the system is a form of shufflemancy, but I've taken it a few steps more, so I won't reveal everything. The step-by-step guide is in the book, and will soon be online. And it is really simple, but where romance really comes in and takes charge is that there has to be a softness around belief. Like, you sort of have to, like, if you've worked with any sort of divination, to me, it's not that the tools are imbibed with something, but it's really our ability to step into that stream of inner knowing and really use anything. Like, I could look at your shoe and divine. I can hear, and I'm really good at divining with, like, if I hear your voicemail message, yeah, I'm hearing your voice. I'm hearing I'm hearing what you're not saying in your voice. And I've done so much voicemail magic. That's something that I could do. So it's kind of less about, it's about that spirit of stepping into that stream of information and becoming the oracle. And that's why it's the new romantics, because it requires a sort of softness. It requires a getting out of the way. And we're not going to become an oracle for truth or the mysteries if we're brutish and we're forcing and we're sort of like trying to mold our reality like we're seeing happen. Like, we could all be working a lot more efficiently if we remembered that we're multidimensional. And so that's a part of the new romantics too. It's like, what happens in times of chaos? Creativity, divination. Here is my favorite tool right now as a gift to the culture as we're moving into a lot of chaos. And then it's a lot about becoming that oracle of your life. And yes, it could be through music and part of the shuffle feature. Yes, it could be through anything. Spirit's always trying to talk to you. So it's, I don't know, there's a little multi-layered messaging, and that's very much my style, because I love collage. So there's a lot of collage in the book. There's just a lot of different elements that we have to hold if we want to be able to interact with romance, if we want to be able to be the oracle, and a certain softness is required to really be penetrated by the divine. Like, if this is a courtship, then, like, we're about to consummate, like, there needs to be a softness to receive the information. So I hope I answered your question. I want to tease it out. I don't want to give it away yet. I want people in the book. I want to see this book go as far and wide as it can, because for a while I was so self-conscious, just felt naked, like, oh, I just want to take it all back. I don't want anyone to know. What if there's a typo? What if it's not perfect? And right now I'm really like, what a blessing to be a creator and have this book in the world and see where it goes. So yeah.
I love that. So what I love hearing you say to become the oracle or to be the oracle, and you've used that wording a lot over the years. Um, and for people who may not really know what you mean by that, is that when you say be the oracle, are you always the oracle? Is it a state of being that you step into at certain times? What does it mean to be the
Yeah.
oracle?
That's a good question, because I really feel like where we're at as a species, and maybe this won't always be the case, but we're trying, to me, I really feel like we're in this game of trying to collapse these big polarities. So being willing to know that, yes, you are always the oracle, but also you're not always going to feel like it. There is a magic to forgetting, because then you get to remember. It's like kind of like the birthing canal. Like it's like, and then eventually maybe we won't have a need for it. But I just know that I'm very human. I almost said a fucked up human, but like very human, And so sometimes I forget I'm the oracle and I touch the hot stove. And then I have a post coming up about reverse engineering your intuition. So for me, this happened as I was headed to New York. I got like a little feeling I was supposed to bring something, and I glossed over the feeling. And now as I'm packing, I like to slow pack. Like 2 days before I start looking around, doing the things, and I touched something that I could have used, but I didn't bring it, and it was the little dongle that goes on the bottom of your phone. And I could have used it in a really specific instance. And I was like, oh, that's why I had that tingly feeling, and I didn't listen to it. So like, it's always there. This book, my guide, my life is really about helping us to remember that and to give ourselves grace when we are not that. And I think just that shortens the amount of time that we're like out of flow. It's not about perfection. It's about, again, it's like our job as artists and creatives, all of us, is to sort of make the revolution be irresistible, because there is so much like there's so much temptation just to like always show up on camera with a filter, to always like we're always being like seduced out of our power. Like we think something outside of us is going to give us power, and that's part of being an oracle too, is like there's a lot of people answering questions, but it's not about what their answers are. It's about you and tapping into what's real for you and where you've been. No one's walked in your shoes. No one's dreamt your dreams. No one's had the heartbreaks that you have had, although there's a similarity between all of us. This work really is about guiding people into their true note. So like, yes, it's about divination, but when we're in our true note, doors open without us having to kick them down, and synchronicities fall into our lap. And yes, we have to do the work, and yes, there's heartbreak, there's all the things, but like there are these really beautiful moments that the New Romantics is just encouraging people.
You said something that just really stirred my soul. You said there's a magic to forgetting because then you get to remember. And I think that's so beautiful. I wrote a play a while ago, and one of the main lines that is repeated is "Siempre recuerdas," always
Mhm.
remember.
Mm.
And I think that for me, there has been maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe a fear of forgetting again.
Mhm.
Like, oh no, don't forget who you are.
Yeah.
Don't forget that you are the oracle. Don't,
Mhm.
and it's almost this like, don't be human.
Yeah.
Right? And but being human is this dance of forgetting and remembering, forgetting
Yeah.
and remembering. And so I really appreciate that phrase that there's magic in forgetting because
Yeah.
then you can remember, because it it really allows for our humanity
Yeah.
in this mix.
Hmm.
And that was really powerful.
Hmm. I just wrote down, what if being human was the goal? Because again, just back to paradox, I believe we're all divine. Like that's where we came from. That's where we're going to return to. I know the soul's journey is a part of that, but like, what if we really came here to master the messy, And that doesn't require being superhuman. To me, it requires like actually more going into what makes us human. And so that's also a big part of, because I can come off self-righteous, and I kind of am. Like I actually have a t-shirt that says self-righteous, but I really want us to take back the divine inner knowing. I said lost connection. Hold on. Hope that's okay. The divine inner knowing within each one of us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I I like that shirt, and I can be that way too. I can be a little self-righteous. Um, and I think there is something to an indelible knowing
Yep.
that I am divine having a human experience.
Hmm.
Like I can forget, and I do. I'm very human. I fuck up all the time. Like I am very human.
Hmm.
And I completely agree that that's the point. Like that's why I'm here. If I was meant to be in a different dimension, experiencing a different dimension, which I may be at the same time, I'm not
Hmm.
opposed to that
Yeah.
idea, but that, that's happening. Let's just say that that's happening and this is happening.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter that that's happening. That's taking care of itself.
Hmm.
This experience is happening here.
Yeah.
This part of me is experiencing this right now. And if I wasn't meant to be, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So why am I running from the experience of being human? Like
Hmm.
why are we trying to I and don't get me wrong, I biohack all the time, right? Like I am very in tune with my body as a woman, and I don't do everything that the men do because it doesn't work for me, all of that. But I also hate the word biohacking.
Yeah.
Like I really don't like that word,
Yeah.
because what are we trying to hack? We're human. Like we're really just going back to what the essentials are. Like
Yeah. And there's no
that's what it
shortcuts.
is.
There are no true shortcuts. There may be things that are really beneficial for one, that have a lasting effect. But I don't think there's any shortcuts. There's no shortcuts to mastery. There's no shortcuts to being initiated into the magic. Like you have to, and that's one thing that's missing, is everything's a button push away. So there's an entitlement around what is hard, and we don't want it. Sometimes me too. I'm like, I don't want this. Like the way through is through. F that. I'm going to build a bridge around it. And it just doesn't,
Yep.
you always go back to the space where you haven't moved through the resistance enough, truthfully. So a lot of that is just how to sell products, and we've bought into that is true. And there's the placebo. So, and that's the thing, is we're living in a really magical realm where people have had near death experiences and come back with a spontaneous remission. But for most of the world, you just put one foot in front of the other, and you trust the spontaneous remission, and you trust the small daily steps, if that's your path and that's what's being called out of you. So again, it goes back to these sort of fundamental beliefs about life. Do you trust life? Yes, most of the time. And sometimes we let whatever, we trust the government more, we trust our whatever more than we trust life. So as you were speaking, I was like, that's why like every great story really is about knowing yourself. Like every superhero movie is like, oh, that was in me. It's about like truly knowing yourself.
Yeah, I self-actualization is it's the whole purpose. Like, and
Yeah.
it's not the same for anyone else, which is what one of the things, although I haven't read the book yet, I'm very excited to read it. One of the things that I'm just energetically picking up from the New Romantics is that we get to turn ourselves back on.
Yeah.
If we feel like we've been turned off, if we feel like we're disconnected, if we feel like we're not the oracle, we get to turn ourselves back on. And we have all of these tools to help us,
Yeah.
whether it's music or nature or breath.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that the New Romantics gets to be yet another tool and a reminder
Yeah.
in the forgetting, in that dance.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what, in terms of your own remembrance of who you are, how has that been more deeply called out of you in the process of writing this book?
Mm. That's a great question. You know what it's really guided me to do, and I was telling my friend this, is that I've really been more deeply in all of my practices that tune me into that space. So it's always around us. There's always a field of creativity. There's always that potentiality that exists right along with our either willingness or unwillingness to interact with it. And so it's funny, you could be like talking about something, writing about something, and it's not the same as like actually having that time to experience it. So it's really called me more deeply into my practices. And right now, it's all about the slowdown because I can be very much like doing 24/7. So I've been on this Tai Chi, Qigong, just like cultivation of energy and being able to feel the chi. Like it's just, life is so funny because like in my 20s, I was dating this guy and because he came from a lineage of Tai Chi, he did it, but I just thought it was so weird. I was like, they're just not even moving. Like, what are they doing? And now I'm in a class full of like 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 60-year-olds who are like taking Tai Chi here in Wimberley or Qigong. So, yeah, I mean, this book has just guided me more deeply into the magic of paper to pen and these sort of body movements like dance church happened when I was writing the New Romantics, which is just the power of dance, like letting your body speak instead of your mind. So, like starting to take a little inventory of what's really happened is helpful. And I think that's what it is. It's just really been about these different tools in my life and making sure that I'm using them and just not talking about them. And so it's been very bodily for me too, because I think that for a long time, I really like balancing the dreamer with the doer, which is the body, has been my work for the last 7 years. It's been really about, okay, you can harness all this information, but how do we bring it into form in some way, even if it's just speaking it? Like, I was the shyest introvert. So just the fact that I've gathered my nervous system this much is a sheer miracle of grace. You can do it too. We all can do it. But yeah, the practices, I think that's what's going to keep us grounded into, our grounding cord into spirit while things are really chaotic. It's like, how strong is your root system? Like the thing with, and also the thing, okay, little tangent. The thing with Austin is like all of the fruits look so good, but you know how you can go to the grocery store and they'll just put on that like shellac over something? It's like, no, we actually need deep roots. And these practices allow me to have deep roots. So my fruits are actually sweet. They're not just this like, oh, I painted this for social media. No, I am in integrity with my word and my movement. And yeah, practice, 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 practice.
I I relate to what you're saying so much. So much. I I have so much fire and air in my chart. Like I just want to go, go, go.
Yeah,
Let's expand. What are we
yeah.
sitting still for? And the downloads come and I'm like, what do you mean it's going to take me 7 months to do this?
Uh-huh.
It's here. Like, let's go.
Oh my God.
So I
Yes. Yes, I made a post recently about how long it took me to actualize on this dream. And I think we need to ease up. Like, yes, it's all there, but really what makes like that first album by the artist that we love so good is that all of their life up until that album was like it was like the soul food to birth this album. And now that we're in the Britney Spears age, you got to have like a banger every year. It comes out and there's like something missing. So even just like being in the space doing the first podcast, hearing my voice echo off kind of the walls, but like seeing the vision come to life, I'm like, oh, it couldn't happen a second before. And I was so begrudging of the time it took, but it really turned me into the person who could be with the vision. And so, my whole post was like, if it's not here yet, you're just cultivating. And it's not about the peak, it's not about the orgasm. It's actually about everything that led up to it. Did you have to force it and then it happens? Or did you just slowly chip away and suddenly this energy just whoosh, brought it right in? And I'm about the whoosh right now. Like, please keep me in the whoosh.
Yeah. I like that. I like being in the whoosh. And yeah, there's the practices for me too are what keep me from going like insane,
Yeah.
because I see the vision,
Yeah.
and I do get very frustrated at the constrictions of time in
Yes.
this dimension, and it's like, just it manifest. Manifest. I see you in my head, manifest. So coming back to, I have an apprenticeship program for Brazilian lymphatic drainage and somatics, and my apprentices will ask me, what do you do after you work on someone to come back into yourself? And I have an answer for them, but what I tell them is, honestly, it's not so much about what I do after, it's what I do before I even step into the room, when I first wake up. When I wake up, and am I giving myself time? Am I giving myself time to move my body in a way that is supportive? Am I giving myself time to listen to music that's going to put me in a state of vibration where I am grounded, I am protected, and I can take someone's energy and alchemize it and move it out of my system?
Mm.
If that doesn't happen, then it doesn't matter what I do after I see the client, because I'm not in the space to begin with.
Yeah.
But by actually allowing myself time and grace to go slow and to come into what the day is bringing me and how I get to show up, then I do show up, and
Yeah.
I am like, it's a completely different day.
Yeah.
So I really resonate with the practices being everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And really think about like potency. Think of like everything now is like we're shunning fast fashion, we're shunning fast food because it strips away something that is mineralizing and nurturing and really great. So think about your gifts in the same way. It's like they're just becoming more potent for those who take them. And again, we keep thinking we can skip the apprentice phase, we can skip the work that it takes to become the thing. And this manifestation very much for me, what I'm sitting in is like I I had that vision. And even as I was looking at spaces, there was like these multi-million-dollar buildings where I was like, oh, I could see like doing this. And like, the vision was so big. And I kind of was just like standing there, come on, give it to me, give me this thing. And I was like, no, I become the person that can do that. And this is the step in the right direction. And it's almost like there is a quickening, there is a linchpin moment where someone goes from like even, do you know the Alabama Shakes?
I love them.
Or just like, yes, like any group that one day is anonymous and then the next day they're everywhere. It's like they were behind the scenes chipping away for, maybe it was, some people were short, 3 years, 7 years, 10 years. Like a lot of the people's stories that I love were like in obscurity. Then they were so scared. Like Ray LaMontagne is someone who I love and just have seen over and over. And his story is so sweet because I'm such a shy person, introvert. And the first time he sang out, it just went boom for him because, he had done all the things. So it's so much about trusting that path and, yeah, coming into yourself and all the things we've been talking about. But yes, I relate to everything you said too.
I want to touch on just one piece, because I know if I don't, my audience is going to be like, new romantics, how did you not talk about like romance and dating? So um I just want to open this piece of the conversation by saying, for me, my audience knows, but I am in a very intentionally single point in my life. I've been celibate for the last year, and I'm just about at the stage where I'm getting ready to step back into see what this world looks like, right?
Yeah.
And I have a lot of clients who are in the same boat, and they're questioning, where is romance with the apps, that it doesn't exist on the apps, with the fact that people go out and they don't actually talk to each other anymore, because since COVID, it's just like pods, and you're with your pod and that's it. And the image that has come up for me as I've been like in this season for myself is that I am picturing myself as, in Spanish we say un caldo, like a broth, right? And I am the broth, and I'm just like simmering in my own juices. And the right chef who has the basket full of all the stuff to make the perfect stew is gonna be smelling that caldito.
Yes.
And it's like, I have exactly the right stuff to make an amazing stew with that caldito. Like I'm going to that.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm just here like stewing in my juices.
Yeah.
And that's really been helpful for me as I think about stepping back into this space. And I'm curious, have you been getting questions like that from your audience? Like what has the new romantics brought up in terms of dating and sex and love for you and your community?
What's so funny is I forgot in the time period that this was really coming online for me, is that I was in sort of the same space as you were now. And again, community. I was like, I'm going to do a coaching program called A Few Good Women. I'm going to ask some women to come be in community with me. And we're really going to understand our desire for partnership. I'm going to bring in some like experts and people that I think I'm really inspired by. So I had like the voice of Rainier Wild and some, divine masculine energy and some like sex. And, we just all like put it in a pot and stirred it up. And everyone had to promise not to be on the apps, actually not to swipe, to actually be what you were said, just this like vector point, this juicy stew, just like bubbling in all your juices, and to let that aroma really bring things in. And so, that, it's funny because that's like the secret third thing that I love. And there's so many things, but I talk a lot about relationship, because the Gene Keys really is this transmission that's about right relationship with ourselves, with our community, with the greater picture. And so, I feel like I do get a lot, especially since like, I feel like people were so cheering for me, and it kind of made me feel like this like old weird witch in the woods that got a boyfriend, and everyone's like, oh my God, she's got a boyfriend. But like, I was just like, God, I just like spirit, whoever's listening, I just want like a boyfriend and a dog, and like want it to feel like this. And, I went through that, the idea that Rumi said about not searching for love, but removing any blocks that are in the way of love. And so that's what A Few Good Women were really about. It's like, it's not that the signal's not there for that chef that has all the right ingredients. It's like, how do we remove the blocks so the scent can be taken in? And so I feel like that's really important with romance. And it's like, it's sort of the idea is like, don't wait to be the loving one. Don't wait to be romance. Like, romance yourself, romance life, and see who shows up in your path. I mean, and it doesn't mean that you don't swipe, but there's even an energetic to the way we're swiping. Are you sitting down? Are you just like, I've seen that world. I haven't been a part of it, but I've seen how a lot of people interact with it. And then they're like butthurt, but it's like, come to, and of course, this doesn't guarantee 100% success. You've got to kiss a few frogs. Like, that's just the way that it is. But it's about refining what your message is. What does your profile speak to? What energy, are you in the energy of romance? Or are you just expecting someone to come in and do that for you? And so I've really had to remind people that they're the point of attraction, and that their energy, myself too, that my energy is what's being felt And so, as I was writing myself, I started to like have a clarity around how I wanted to speak about it. And it wasn't like on the first time I'm meeting someone, grilling them, like how we think like that's extreme. It's like, no, we do sort of, to me, it's so nice to ease into things. And that's really what I did with my now partner. It's just really clear about where I was at. And then I was really feeling like building with someone. And he was like, okay, well, what does that mean? And then it made me think about what that means. And then I had to answer him. And so, yeah, the new romance, like the idea of romance as an evolutionary force doesn't negate that it's also like an energy between people who are wanting to get to know each other. That's super important. So yeah, I'm not asleep to it in that realm either. I love it talking about it.
Um, this is this has just been delightful. I could talk to you all day, and the next time you do a retreat, I will make sure that I have not already planned one that I'm doing so that I can come to yours because I was so bummed last summer or last fall. I was like, I really want to go, but I couldn't. So next time I'm make sure I can be there.
Okay.
For our audience, when can we get a copy of The New Romantics? When is it going to be available?
So
I'm
you can
sure we're going to
go.
get lots of questions around that.
Thank you. You can go to thenewromancticsoracle.com and put your email address in, and you'll get all the information. You'll get a playlist that I've created in the meantime. But actually, when I got back from New York, I thought I'd have the final version like on my desk so I could just flip through it and say, yes, let's go. But as soon as that happens, and I think we're going to do about 30 days, 60 days of a pre-sale. So it'll be summer. By summer, this book will be in your hands, but we're still kind of doing all of the foreplay until the new romantics is with you.
Amazing. Um, Aisha, I'm so grateful that you took the time to chat with me today, and I am a huge supporter of you. If there's anything I can ever do just to like boost you up and remind you that you are an amazing gift to this world, please know that I'm here in your corner cheering you on. I'm so
Well,
grateful that you were here. Thank you.
thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Queridas, we made it to one of my favorite parts of each episode, the moment of flow. I love poetry. I love words and rhythm and how when you mix the two, you get into a beautiful state of flow. And so I want to leave you with that at the end of each episode. So here it is, your moment of flow. Romantic. What is romance? Beyond the image, what's the truth within chocolate-covered strawberries? Sweetness, desire, luscious longing, the giddy excitement when the treats are given, eyes widen, pulse quickens. For me, who else? The intention to be juicy, taking our time, all the foreplay, the dedicated pursuit, choosing to create magic moments for a special someone, seeing the truth of now and the vision of what may come, while holding loving devotion for each step between, watching with curiosity and delight, orchestrating life to be full of the softest kisses, holding hands as the sun sets. Romance is delight in giving and receiving love. Delight in love. Allow her music to inspire the dance and notice the butterflies and the stars and the moon and the ocean are romancing you too.